So in the previous video, we talked about in lesson 7 sprites and how to draw sprites. In lesson 8, we're going to deal with some of their properties. And the first one that we're going to look at here is we have our two sprites here, palette. We've created that sprite. We've done the palette animation to that specific image. And eventually we've drawn that down there as long as setting up our paintbrush as well, as we can see. So we have those brush and paintbrush set up there. But if you take a look, each of us of these has an XY. So we take that variable palette, period X equals 100. So I'm going to change that. And what that's going to do is that variable, it's going to move that palette to 200 on the X. Or if I come here and 200 on the Y, you're going to notice that it changes our XY here. This is going to become really important. I know we could create Sprite at a specific XY, but we're going to want to deal with the XY variables for this as we learn to write counter patterns and other things for motion later on. So that's what they're looking at in the bubble. Third bubble is looking at the XY components of this. Now we have a lot more coding going on here. Again, we have the background, we have the drums, we're creating that sprite at 200, 200. The animation is set there. We have the notes, note 1 being created here. But we can see this new set of coding here, note scale. Now, if I change this to 0.2 and let's rerun it, you're going to see that my notes actually get smaller. We can see that note getting smaller. If I go above a number, meaning above 1, I'm going to put a 1.1 up there, we're going to see we're going to take that image and we're going to change it by making it 10% larger. So if I have 1, it's just going to make the image as is. If I go below 1, it's going to scale it down by percentages. And if I go above 1, it's going to scale up by percentages. So I'm going to change this back down to point, let's say 2.5. We can see that ran right there now. Now the rotation, if you can think of you bringing the image in as being vertical on the X, meaning straight at 90 degrees on the X, and 180 degrees on the Y, if I put in 90, I'm going to rotate that image 90 degrees on that as I move around that X-axis. So if I go put in 180, I'm going to rotate that 180 degrees on that X-axis. So this is just another way that we can change the way the sprite actually looks. If we look down here, we can see again we're shrinking this by 0.3, which is a 30% decrease. And if you look here, we're also rotating it negative 30 degrees. So we're going to the left 30 degrees on this image too. I'm going to change this to 60 just so you can see that negative 60 on the screen. So we can see that note here changes going negative 60 degrees on the X-axis. Bubble 5, you have some practice. You can choose either A or B, working on the scale and rotation property. I would suggest doing both because they're dealing with two separate concepts here. And then as you go to bubble 6, you're doing your assessment. We can see here they're asking you to scale and rotate the food in order to fit it on the plate properly. So again, as we're getting used to programming, it's really important, especially our XY and our other sprite properties, that we get used to, because we'll be doing some algebraic equations or algorithms to change them later on in our programming.